Why does
Hold
it
on.
oh,
Wait, where's
oh,
this?
oh,
I
where's it going live to?
uh wait, let me see.
It
Okay,
says you're
it's over
live.
there.
It says you're live. I'm in
Yeah.
here. I can see it.
But I'm not seeing the why do I not see the chat? Okay, I think I do.
I think I see too.
Yeah, okay.
All right, folks. So we've got a slightly new, what should we say here? Broadcasting software?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
the
So I'm we're using Riverside this time.
right?
Um Before we were using our uh yeah, well, yeah, I mean you can see the stream because you just posted and you're using the public stream. Okay. Making sure people can see it. Um but before we've been using StreamYard.
Right.
And that was only because I think you had through Datadog you had an account, but we ended up using my account anyway, which is great. But
Yeah, I was using
um,
Streamer through most of the pandemic. At one point in time,
hmm,
I had paid for an account for the longest time, and then obviously the company got kind of interested in it as well as we started using it for other events. But I feel like this space was one of those things. Maybe this is selfishly, but I feel like they're addressing a need that was popular during COVID, and maybe less so now, but is a need that
hmm,
I have as a remote person. So I love this, the fact that there's now more than one or two or three apps that can do the broadcasting to live feeds. This is fantastic.
yeah, yeah. I mean, my issues with StreamYard was that I think I'm paying like $25 a month or something like that,
Mm.
which is not cheap. Um, Especially since I really only use it for this thing, which we do three times a week, four times a month.
Three times a week would be
So
awesome.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, uh, and I use, I mean, I stream directly from my ATEM Extreme. I'm now doing it almost every day,
Nice.
um,
I did notice
which is a lot of fun.
a couple of Olama working streams there when I checked out the channel. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
But with StreamYard, even at that $25 or so, 20-ish dollars, it's only at 720p. And this also is streaming at 720p, but we're gonna have there's other benefits. So streams at 720p and it stays in 720p. It does all these recordings so you can do stuff later, but you can't really do a whole lot with it. And I was eager to see, well, first off, is there a cheaper approach?
Right.
And so I've signed on to Riverside onto their pro account, which is, I think, also $25 a month if you do it monthly. I'll switch over to a year thing if it works out. Not super sure about that because it's definitely got some weaknesses, like we can't see the chat, the YouTube chat,
Right.
and we're streaming to YouTube and I think Twitter and I think something else. LinkedIn.
Ooh.
But we can't see those chats. But we couldn't see those chats in StreamYard.
No.
And we only see the YouTube one if we're logged into the YouTube stream and we're getting it that way. But afterwards, I just did a little play around with it earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
But afterwards, it's got all these like AI features built into the platform.
Oh,
and
I hear that stuff's pretty popular these days.
Apparently AI is a thing. So it will make it easy for us to automatically pull out clips, share them automatically to all the vertical formats, and then also it does a lot of other things. So that looked really cool. Oh, and then editing via text, so you can just like edit all the pause. It will automatically create an edit for you, and then the whole time it's recording mine at 1080p,
Mm-hmm.
and it's recording yours at what did you set yours?
1080p.
Did you set anything? Okay, so after the recording, I'll be able to download the full resolution and then we can edit. And you know,
Ah.
if one of us goes on a monologue for
You can delete it.
a long time, yeah, we could delete it, or again go full screen on that. Or I can even add, you know, if we talk about a website, maybe I record the website afterwards and add that to it as
Oh,
well.
that's next level.
So there's a lot of neat things we can do there. We need to figure out what's up with this audio though. I'm recording. Okay, can't change. That's coming in there. I think I don't know, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't have my audio stuff set up well. Noise reduction. I don't have anything like that turned on.
I'm not
Did
hearing
you do?
Yeah, I'm not hearing
Oh,
any popping on your end, but once in a while it's like the codec is dropping or something. Maybe it's bandwidth because I do notice your video quality is like 260p or something like that.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not great. I did check though. I'm on Wired as well because I was having some issues this morning.
Wired.
I ran out of IP addresses on my home network, which is like you know you've worked in IoT for too long when you're out of IP addresses. It's happened to me a few times now in the last 5 years, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So I think I'm okay on my end, but yeah, thank you very much, Sam, for the feedback there. We'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll see what it's like for the well, as I say, we'll test it out a couple times. We'll get better at this. But if it really sucks, I mean, I still have my StreamYard account. Maybe I'll switch to a year thing, or maybe we'll try something else. IPv6, that's your solution.
Yeah.
Make everything unreadable.
Sam, you are not wrong. I thought about this many times, or like DNS names assigned to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there. I just have to name every device in my network. That shouldn't be too hard, right?
Yeah, easy.
Oh, they've got host names already. Yeah, it should be fine. But yeah, otherwise, I think this experience is interesting. Also, I noticed on YouTube, what's cool for me is that it highlights the person speaking, which I thought, I don't know, weird benefit.
So I just need to talk over you and just let's not see you. No.
Yeah, it just I think it highlights both if we're both talking at the same time.
Yeah, no, it does.
Anyway, I got to stop watching this, but yeah, this is super fun.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't have too much to talk about this week. I'm working on this. We've got a yearly conference that I've been working on, and
oh, okay. When's that?
Of my time. It's June the 24th. I should know this.
Okay.
At the back of my hand. But yes, it's coming up. It's not too bad. Listen, this year we got prepared way ahead of time, which is excellent. I'm running a workshop. However, I haven't been watching a lot of news and things like that. But I did see like a refrain or something that seems to be a popular theme. It's like there's a lull in generative AI news, and as a result, everybody's saying, "Hey, is the boom over? Are all these companies going bankrupt?" And what I really found interesting is watching these videos and trying to figure out what people's thoughts of this sort of like boom, bust, and echo kind of process is. So if there's something that's popular, let's say Web3 as an example, and it hits a certain level where a lot of people are interested in it, and I don't know, consumers start getting interested in buying products or what have you. When does it fall off, and what happens after that? What I find interesting is some of the people reporting on this haven't been around long enough to sort of see these sort of trends before, so they don't know what to look for. But the ones that have been have some pretty good points. So, like, one of the questions is, are there a lot of sort of like bull crap companies being created around like this hype cycle? And sort of taking consumers' money in maybe a fraudulent fashion and going, you know, maybe I'm thinking of crypto here specifically, but you know, the fly-by-night operations, that kind of stuff. So none of that smell yet. There's some AI washing though, like people calling things like AI, where it's maybe just like machine learning or what have you. But I haven't really seen too much in terms of the over-promising part. There've been some demos that were definitely a little bit hokey that I've seen. Like Google comes to mind again. Hate to be bashing Google and Microsoft and all the other big companies every week, but there was one demo from Google that wasn't great. But I think on my end, it feels like it's not over. It's very much just we've almost hit like is it the trough of disillusionment, which I think is great actually. If that's where we are, this means that we're going to get into maturity. And I guess all of this seems to have stemmed by one research paper that I saw some people say that it came out of Oxford. It looks like that may or may not be true. Maybe it's Oxford the place as opposed to the university. But I think the conclusion was that less people are using ChatGPT now than they were, say, a year ago. Which, listen, that could be true. It could be that they were very interested when it first came out, and then they got their free access, and that was cool but limited, and then because of that it hasn't necessarily grown at the same clip, at the same rate that it has been before. But I want to remind people that, like, when you have shareholders and people who are invested in your company, they want your rate of growth to increase, not just your growth to not just your company to get larger or you to get more
Right.
clients. They want to see the hockey stick graph. They want to see things
Right.
really take off, like a rocket ship, that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
it feels like it's not that ChatGPT is getting worse or anything like that. We talked last week about the sorry, I hate this word, but there's no other word for it, the enshittification of the internet, in terms of it going sour after a certain period of time.
Right.
It doesn't feel like that's happening in this space. It might, but my conclusion is that I think this is like a good thing, that people are being a little bit more self-aware, or thinking about the
Hmm.
industry as a whole is actually a good thing. But I wonder what your take is, as somebody who actually honestly does a lot more work in this field than I do.
Well, I think if that were true, things like today's ChatGPT outage,
Right.
because too many people are trying to reach it,
It'd be a non-event, right?
it would be. I mean, yeah,
Or would
but
happen.
a lot of people seem like, oh my god, it's down. Like whenever GitHub goes down or
Right.
any other Twitter, it's like, oh my god, the world's ending. At the same time, a papers come out saying, oh, nobody's using it. Yeah, come on, that's ridiculous.
I think it's ridiculous. And also, if you've got a company that's using this as an API, maybe that isn't surfaced in kind of these reports. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And when it's
yeah.
down, maybe this API being down is actually a really big problem because you can't make money any longer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What else? do you
Yeah, I
got?
mean, so many companies have built their business on access to, rather than a model that they control, a model that is, I mean, I don't know how many times this has happened where it has gone unavailable for a bit of time. I don't know how long this morning's problem lasted, but I mean, there's this dependency you have that you do not control.
Right.
I know that was definitely, I mean, for Datadog, I mean, that was definitely a concern for a long time because it was 100% reliant on AWS,
US
and it wasn't
one?
until US ceased one, yeah,
Well,
and
to
then
my
it
point,
expanded,
I don't want to insult all the companies today, but yes, I've also had
yeah,
issues in US East One, as I'm sure other people have.
yeah, and now it's not just on AWS or even one region; it's on
Right.
multiple regions, multiple hosting providers,
Right.
and that's yeah. What was that? There was that company that um, pretty recently Google deleted their whole. It was like some investment firm, or no, a retirement fund,
Yes.
like 2 billion in
Yeah.
assets or multi-billions, and
Yes.
Google deleted their whole account. Not only their one region, but their second region, and
All the
luckily they had a backup on another hosting provider, or another cloud provider.
This topic, listen, I happen
Hmm.
to somehow see a tweet about this just randomly, and I looked at
Yeah.
it like, this seems odd, because the tweet was someone saying, this public message from this company doesn't really add up for me unless there's something really wrong on the Google side. This is before they figured out what was going on.
Oh, right.
And I looked at it like, yeah, so they publicly said that there was a problem on the Google end that Google had told them about, basically.
Mm.
And the Google response was, "We're looking into it." And they're like, "Well, they're not gonna like, as a financial firm, you're not gonna
Right.
publicly throw shade at your hosting provider unless it's legit, right? Because this is
Right.
an easy way to shoot yourself in the foot." And that's how I found out about it. And I thought, like, yeah, that does seem a little bit odd, actually. And then lo and behold, it looks like somebody, I don't want to say fat finger, but made it like a coding error, or like an operations error, where they actually legitimately did delete the data. It just because
Yeah.
there was some, like, I think it was a math operand or something missing, and it greedily grabbed this, which is, there's humans involved.
Yeah.
So it's legitimately
Humans.
scary. And my brain immediately went to, like, this is something where at least if you're thinking about a Raytheon Archie diagram, so like responsible action informed or consulted kind of thing. I would at
Uh-huh.
least like to say that you consulted another human, or maybe if it
Right.
has to be a chatbot, that you say like, hey, could there be anything wrong with this? Like that
Mm.
that to me seems like I hate the term co-pilot. Sorry, I'm full of hate today. But if you had someone
Mm.
sitting beside you to say like,
Yeah.
hey, Matt, maybe you
You're a
should think
pair
twice.
programmer,
Yeah,
pair DevOps.
because in general, I'm sure you're like this too. In generally, when I'm deleting something, like deleting, there's
Yeah.
no recourse deleting. I generally will think twice and like just ask someone for a sanity check because I've certainly deleted data, not to this level, but it made me think about this problem space for sure. Sorry, you got me off on a whole tangent here,
What
but
was
this
that?
story is so interesting to me.
There was a an incident like I feel like I was still at Datadog at the time, so it's
Oh,
at least two
Night
and a half
Capital.
years ago, where the documentation for this company showed an example of how to like drop a database, and the example they showed was their production database, and somebody did it. They just copy pasted, pressed enter without
Oh,
before they had a chance to update the, and it like took the whole thing down for like a week. I can't remember who that was.
I hate to say I love this,
I
but
think it was somebody important.
yeah, these outage examples are amazing to me, right? Just like
Yeah.
anytime this kind of thing happens, I really think about it. And I don't want to say Gen AI is the answer, but it is an answer for
Right.
sure. If you have to put some sort of training wheels on this kind of thing, it looks like
Yeah.
the Clippy. Did you really want to delete all these tables, Matt? Like it looks like you're about to drop production. Would you like to continue?
Or when a certain company we both may have worked for does bills bill continues to do, or at the time early days of that company did all their billing from Google spreadsheet and accidentally chose the wrong column and billed all customers by like an extra magnitude.
That's gonna be before my time.
Oh, it's long before your time. Basically, it was all hands on deck. Everybody got a customer's name, and everybody called. So they got calls from developers, and like everybody's calling just to make. You're okay. We're not
Yeah.
that bill. We're gonna give you some extra stuff, and
Yeah, you're touching on something that I think is important though, the make it
yeah,
right aspect of making the mistake. So listen, I'm not saying
yeah,
make mistakes and then go out there and try to gain trust afterwards because it'll erode trust regardless. But I think that's a good example
yeah.
of gaining that trust back. And I think in the Google example, at least there's not like from what I saw of their communications, it feels like someone could delete my data again. And I do host
Hmm.
with Google, full disclosure. GCP hosts most of my
Hmm.
websites. It's
Okay.
just because it's easy. I've been using
Hmm.
AppSec for years, but it does make me feel odd about it. Now that being said, Google's a big company, so they've had outages, they've had other things. We
Yep.
talked last week about those search engine results, talking about adding glue to pizza and eating rocks and things like that. I'm not sure if you saw their response, but I thought their response was very mature, actually, like
Oh, really?
to the nth degree, and I thought it was really well handled. Really well handled. So one of them was, "Hey, some of these screenshots you're sharing around are legitimately fake," and they called it. I think the eating rock one specifically is
Uh
like
huh.
legitimately fake. Like it's been doctored. In this day and age, it's hard to tell what's fake and what's not. We understand this. However, we've confirmed that at least some of these, or the 50% of these, are gone.
Yeah.
Also, some of these searches are novel. Like no one's ever searched for this before. How they found eat rocks, for example, is not a search term that's new, and because it's not in the corpus that we're trained on, they didn't say hallucination, but like there's
Right.
no answer there, so there's some liberties taken in the answers given. And then the last was like, hey, mea culpa. Like we made mistakes. Some of these are
Yeah.
actually wrong. We didn't think through like the breadth and depth of the searches, and the fact that Google's used by so many people
Right.
so often on a daily basis. So there are definitely some outliers, but those outliers, unfortunately, numbered in the thousands,
Yeah.
maybe. And because of that, it kind of gave them a black eye, basically. So they're saying
Yep.
like, hey, one, fake data, unfortunately. Two, I mean, some of these answers maybe were impossible to answer regardless. And then three, it's like, yeah, we kind of messed up, which I thought was awesome. So it wasn't just
Yeah.
it was like a multifaceted approach to a problem that's
Hmm.
a little bit complicated, which I thought was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. It's
Kind of.
you can't really judge a company based on a mistake it makes, because all companies are going to make mistakes,
Right.
but rather on how do they react to that mistake.
Right.
Um,
And I hate
you
to
know,
say
I
companies as a
yeah,
person, but you're absolutely right. Like the same
yeah,
applies
and
like
yeah,
you.
same goes with
Not you
people. You
make
know, and
mistakes, but it's like how you recover from the
sure,
mistake. If you
how
blame
do you
me
recover from that
for it, or
mistake?
like say like you know what I mean. You've gone through engineers that make mistakes, and they're like, oh, like someone was bound to make a mistake. It's not my fault, that kind of stuff. But I think when you reach an engineer that's mature enough, they'll assume responsibility first and try to fix it, which is awesome. And I feel like that's the answer that we got back from Google. Whereas I haven't I followed the financial firm too closely, but I would assume that there's something happening between those two companies right now, and then perhaps
Hmm.
later we'll get like an answer. But I guess the difference here is that there's like a lot of people's money is at stake versus public search results kind of thing. So I understand that the harm could be worse than the public search results, but it's sort of a newer beta feature. Whereas the one where people are actually losing money, it feels like they're maybe pausing it prior to answering it to make sure that they're doing it properly, kind of thing. So yeah, I agreed. It's difficult to judge a whole company based on one mistake, but I did find that
Like
they
I
do exact things
remember
different.
early on in Squarespace history,
Right.
they used to be all of Squarespace was hosted in their data center in their building in New York City. The entire every customer around the world was hosted from New York City, and just from their actual offices.
Wow.
And then the big storm hit New York City in a decade ago or so,
I do remember
and
this.
like
Yeah.
flooded everything. All the
When the
streets were
subways
flooded,
were
which
flooded,
is
right? Yeah.
right. But that's fine for Squarespace's servers because they're up on the, high up. So not a big deal. All the connections between, them and, the world were perfectly fine. So no problem there. Lose power. Again, no problem. They've got generators and they can keep those generators running for weeks. No problem. Unfortunately, their generators in the basement. And
Not on the
or
roof.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was
getting
the
a genie on the
generators
roof is hard. It's expensive.
and so they ended up I believe moving a generator from the or getting an extra generator, bringing it up to the server level. But then actually no, it might have been actually a problem with there was some problem with the generators, and the floor was like the fifth floor, sixth floor, some multiple floors, and they had all the gas supply was also down in the basement, and so they spent almost all the night just getting gallon whatever large jugs of gasoline or whatever the fuel is,
Hmm.
and running upstairs, going back down to refill, running back upstairs just to keep the generators running all night. Now, of course, this is because they made a stupid move of having all the servers in one place. I mean, Squarespace wasn't huge like it is now, but it was definitely pretty big. So it's amazing,
I,
amazing.
I honestly I thought that only Etsy was Etsy was the only company hosting in New York. Sorry, I should know more about New York City, but I do find that pretty interesting. The whole diesel thing. In fact, if there is an Olympic sport, I think it's a biathlon, has to do with some sort of like one of those races, right, where you get to ski and then shoot
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
ski again. So maybe there's one with like diesel buckets or something like that that we can
right.
do for the Summer
Okay, run
Olympics.
up with these buckets of diesel. I put all fuels into one category. Run up the stairs and now try to fat finger or press do a SQL command, and then run back down for more fuel, and then
With
do another
slippery
SQL
fingers.
command.
With slippery fingers. We did get a complaint about the audio, so sorry.
I
Since I'm a
know.
little bit lower than you, I'll try to keep the mic close to my face. So Peace to the Humanity. I think the issue might be that it's my mic technique. Actually, I'll work on that. And I've got the volume turned down a little bit low because I was using whatever Streamyard to adjust the volume. But yeah, I was
And
using
I'll
the
just
auto.
whisper.
You could whisper.
I'll whisper the
We can
whole.
make this an ASMR podcast.
Okay. Ah, yes. But there's
uh,
also noise in the background. It sounds like.
yeah, it feels like when you're talking, we're getting like almost protocol. It sounds like MP3s at like 96 kilohertz or something. You
Mm.
know that kind of like So when they're talking about pops and stuff like that, I think that's what they mean. Back in the days of like Real
Okay.
Media Player, it feels kind of like that.
When
sometimes.
you chose the settings for audio, did you choose the 44.1 or the 48?
Oh, good question. I don't think I picked either, actually.
Okay. I think it defaults to the
Like CD
wrong one.
quality?
I mean, the 44.1, I think it defaulted
That's
to.
44.1. That sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. I'm just
Don't care about noise. Perfect.
we got lots of now we're and then there was another comment about the $20 a month offering, and I think that's kind of where we are, sort of as a, I don't know, as a culture. It's like, what are we spending our subscriptions on these days? So
Oh, yeah.
that's more of a meta question. So you were talking a bit about, so just to back it up, in my brain, I split these into two sides. There's the content consumption, and then there's the content creation. Now, my content creation budget's pretty big. My content consumption budget's pretty low, because my goal is to like produce more than I consume, which is frankly impossible, because I watch a lot of YouTube. But I do pay for a few things. I stopped paying for Prime because two of us in the household were paying for it, which didn't make any sense. So
Oh,
now,
okay. Yeah.
which I didn't realize. So if we don't need that, so we do still have Prime Video. I started paying for like the Sportsnet add-on just during the playoffs. You know, you gotta watch your team. But I do like, I pay for Creative Cloud. We talked about StreamYard.
Mm.
If we end up liking Riverside, I'll probably pay for this as well. But that's kind of where I am when I decide, but it's very difficult because they add up really quickly. $20 doesn't seem like a lot, but five of these services is $100, and five more is 200, and that quickly eats into, you know, your Vancouver rent budget or what have you. Like, it's actually non-trivial basically, and a lot of the subs now that used to be, it felt like everything was $10 before. It feels like everything's $20 now. And I don't know if this is inflation or what's going on, or maybe it's more expensive to operate these services, but the $20 a month subscriptions got to be premium for me to sign up, basically.
So, does my audio sound closer to Ryan's?
Much better to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sam, that's a good point. Australian does. I'm in Canada, sorry, so maybe that's it as well. Is the Canadian to USD? Yeah, okay. So I can turn mine up. My apologies, folks. We'll do so now. Just
Yeah. I was in the happy place up until pretty recently of knowing that all my subscriptions are nobody knows. But then my wife, got back into using. We use You Need a Budget, the YNAB, which does a lot of really good things for making sure you have a budget and you're spending the right amount of stuff. And she went through like, okay, how about this subscription? How about this thing? How about this? What's this AWS charge? What's this other thing? What are these things? And I said, oh yeah, that's Technoevangelist. As like the YouTube, all these stuff that helps YouTube. It's like,
right.
You're spending $1,000 a month on subscriptions. Like, no,
There you go.
that's not possible.
There you go. So
yes, you are.
So as a company,
I don't think so.
Yeah, can you report a loss at least? It's the same as my
Yeah.
photography, right? Like Creative Cloud is pretty expensive, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't.
It does add up.
That's interesting. I don't. Why do you? Why still the Adobe subscription?
Why
I
do
got rid of
have
it.
Yeah. So the three apps that I use, and maybe I should say like to use, but Premiere, Photoshop, and Lightroom are the three that I use.
Okay.
And
I just forgot. I do have Adobe subscription just for the Lightroom piece.
yeah, like the photography bundle or something
The
like that.
$10 a month or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can't seem to get onto that any longer, and it's 20 in Canada. Again, that's the
Mm.
$20 number. So it's double the amount in Canada, and it seems like I can't sign up for it any longer. But I'll check it out.
Oh,
I'd like to downgrade
okay.
at this point in time. I'm
Yeah.
getting used to using Resolve. I think is the
Okay.
thing. Is that it took a long time to get away from the muscle memory of Premiere, but I think Resolve is probably where I'll land. So it makes it a little bit easier. But you're right. Like I could probably use Darktable and GIMP at this point in time in terms of feature set, having used them recently. Speaking of like, if I were to live stream, my scintillating content would be like the open source equivalent of, like, I think it's Kdenlive is the video editor,
Oh, yeah.
which is
Yeah.
so at this point in time, but otherwise, I
Sure.
think Darktable, GIMP, and Inkscape are pretty cool.
Hmm.
But like, there's
Uh,
years of
I
experience, right?
yeah, I mean, all my pretty much everything I've done that's like Photoshop related, uh, in the last year or so has all been Pixelmator
Interesting.
because it's like $20
It's a
period
yeah,
done
it's a one-time cost, right?
one time cost.
Right.
Although I do also have I have a few of the like what's the one the Serif does
Oh, they have so many.
the yeah, I mean I actually have all three of their apps.
All three.
The
Affinity.
Photo Designer and Affinity, not Serif. Is it no, is Serif is the
Serif is
company?
the company, yeah. Affinity
Yeah.
Designer, Photo, and Publisher.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Publisher.
Publisher. I have Publisher even though I have no need for Publisher. I don't know why I have it. Like I love these guys.
This is how they get
Bye.
you. Yeah.
Yep.
I used to have the same soft spot for Panic, the people who made that
Mhm.
portable that you love so much. But I'd want to support them all the time because I really like their software.
Evil.
I,
I keep it on my desk as
it's
example
a
of
reminder
crap.
of bad product design. Yeah, so there's stuff around the questions of how many stuff you hide from your wife. So personally, like, listen, I've been married for a long time, so we have the same bank account. So anything that comes through,
Mhm.
they will see for sure. I will say again, take it or leave it, but in a responsible relationship, generally you want to be open about your purchases. That being said, I've certainly purchased things and then asked for forgiveness later. Most of the time, it's like maybe I'm having a beer and it's 2 a.m. kind of thing.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not rip roaring drunk or anything like that, but the beer gets you excited and you're like, oh yeah, I could use this light, or like this microphone looks nice. And you go from there.
I definitely ask for permission before buying the iPad Pro 13-inch,
Right, we
1
discussed it.
terabyte
Yeah.
nano display, keyboard and pen, which all comes out to like $2,800.
Yeah, so there's a question in the chat. So specifically, yes, I think my issue is we're talking about stuff from Japan. My issue is buying things on auction from Japan late at night. I don't know why. It's like you get in there and you're browsing, and it's particularly Bronica cameras that I grab. There's another question about storage. Another thing that I may grab, like just last minute, is hard drives, which are really expensive, and I'll often like a $500 hard drive, like a 22 terabyte hard drive kind of thing.
Mhm.
When you're trying to swap them. But yeah, I'd say in a responsible relationship, generally you want to be forward with your purchases. It's a little bit easier.
All of my hard drives, all my external hard drives, a bunch of the Samsung, they're all bought for me by Datadog. So
Well, there you go.
I still have those.
We'll send you an invoice.
Apparently, I think at the time, no one in the company was allowed to have external SSDs except for Matt.
That is still the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think again when you hit a certain level of company, generally you have like the USB write policy disabled on managed laptops. It's pretty common. I know that Samsung, for example, is the same. It's quite
Yeah.
common. And then someone asked about the storage that we're using. So I think I'm a staunch Synology fanatic. I do use Asus and QNAP and ZFS on Ubuntu or Pop! OS if we're going to put a final point on it. But I think, Matt, are you also in the Synology?
I have a
Okay.
QNAP.
You have
I have a
okay.
QNAP 2-drive mini NAS that actually Datadog bought.
Here we go. I'm sensing a theme.
And it's sitting in my sitting somewhere. And I occasionally use that to like offload because my MacBook Pro only has 4 terabytes, so I'm always running out of disk space as one would with
Only
4
4
terabytes. Only 4. So I occasionally, mostly it's offloading Final Cut projects after I'm done to that.
Is it the full project, like your RAWs, or are they just
Yeah, it's everything. Well, yeah, it's everything. I put it all. So it's a lot of those projects are 50 to 100 gigs,
That's about right.
and so I'll offload all that. But then I also have
Is it 5 a week roughly? 3 a week?
It's due to 1 to 2 to 5 ish.
So you could be up to 4 terabytes a month pretty easily.
Yeah.
If if I did this right. 2 terabytes a month. My apologies. 2 terabytes a
Yeah.
month pretty easily. All right.
A lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that adds up really quickly. And I mostly
Yeah.
do photos for the audience, and typically even raw, like one session might be 100 gigabytes if I'm really
Yeah.
holding on the remote release button or whatever. But generally, it's about 60 to 80 gigabytes, so they
Mhm.
don't add up that quickly. But yeah, storage.
And then I use Backblaze for backups.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of where I was
I
going. Storage
yeah.
locally is cheap. Storage in the cloud is
Yeah.
not cheap.
I keep meaning to. I mean, there was that service that was, you could we talked about it before.
Radial?
Some other service that you could back up to any other drive that is also kind of associated, not in your account, but associated. So you could like have a NAS at a friend's house, and it would back up to that as well as potentially to their service. But then they turn that feature off so that you have to use their service and pay more money.
We definitely. This has got to be the
We
third,
talked about
fourth time we talked
it.
about this. We
Yeah.
always forget the name. Yeah.
Yeah, and and they're still around. They just don't offer that. But I feel like that's the kind of thing that I think we both need to buy the same NAS, and like back up each other's data to this thing that we can't touch.
Yes. In fact, the studio that I shoot in, my best friend runs it and has a
Okay.
Synology there and at home.
Okay.
That's kind of the discussion that we're in now. So I'm going to. You can't see it because they're blurry, but that's a stack of hard drives that are they're SMR hard drives. They're not bad drives, but generally anything over like a RAID 0 or RAID 1, they're not
Yeah.
great drives when you have to rebuild. But that is our plan now, is to figure out some way to have pockets of data in multiple places, because I pay $80 to Google for storage alone, let alone like
Yeah.
the Google One subscription. We were talking about iCloud, Apple Music. Someone mentioned Usenet.
Yeah.
I may have paid for Usenet at one point in time, no longer. Backblaze, and then there's the Patreon subscriptions or what have you. I got to be honest, I don't have any. I used to support artists, but even my local Hackspace I stopped paying because I was really trying to cut down during the pandemic on all of the
Yeah.
subscriptions, and I think I got it pretty low, and then it's like the levy broke or something, but they seem to start be adding up again.
Yep. I'm up to $40 a month that people are paying me
There you go.
on Patreon.
On Patreon? All right. Maybe
On Patreon.
Maybe
That's
I'll
great.
support you. I don't know. I'll pay you to
Ah.
be a guest on this. But I think the Patreon model for me is very interesting, honestly. Just
Yeah.
because I feel like I can actually support an artist and have a
Mhm.
real meaningful impact on not their ability to create. It's more like the want to create. So Matt, if you get more
Yeah.
subscribers, you're thinking that like, hey, these people are interested and invested in my success,
Yeah.
and as a result, I want to produce for them, kind of thing. That
Yeah, I
to
mean,
me
it's
is
almost like I owe them now.
right.
I mean, even though there's no,
Right, even it
there's
might
no
just be $1 a
guarantee.
month. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I mean, somebody gave. I mean, it's one thing to watch have 1,000 people watch an ad, and I get the 10 cents from that. But for somebody to give me $1 or $5, or one person with $20 up every month, I was like, thank you so much. I'm so excited. I need to work 10 hours just for you, even though it's like $1. And so it's totally.
Gotcha. It seems I'm still low, so I'll turn it up a little bit more. My apologies,
Oh.
folks. I'm trying to talk directly into the mic, but I think it's still pretty low down there.
Yeah.
So I will try to fix it next week before we go on.
One of the
My apologies.
Patreons that I support is I use Final Cut, and there's
Right.
this one YouTuber called Final Cut Bro, and I support his I support his channel. I think it must be like he created that channel when he was 16 and he's stuck with it.
That's so common.
But he puts out plugins that are you only get the plugins if you are a patron, or certain examples of using the plugin, or how did he build it, or all these other things, or just a huge discount on buying the plugin.
Right.
And I mean and he's great. So and I guess for some reason I'm still supporting the bloke. I really should stop that, but
the blue.
the bloke does a lot of model conversions.
Right. And why would you want to stop? Have they done something that's not great?
No, I don't really. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some.
I mean, I was expensing it, and now I can't really because I don't work for Nick. company I can expense it.
There is some talk in the chat, but yeah, it looks like the Patreon model seems to be pretty popular.
Yeah.
Like, is it Jack Dorsey? Is that the guy's name? Maybe I've gotten it wrong. I can't remember the founder's name.
Yeah. Is that the
He's got some YouTube
oh yeah,
channels now
the
as well.
Digital Spaghetti YouTube channel,
Multiple.
and
Yeah.
multiple channels. Yeah.
I guess what I also find interesting is this person is a creator. I guess is what I'm trying to the point I'm
Yeah.
trying to get to, and I think as a result, because they're interested in this type of interaction or this market,
Yeah.
that they are still continuing to create and talk to creators about this, which I think is phenomenal, just in terms of like community building, or maybe it's goodwill or whatever. But they talk
Yeah.
the talk, they walk the walk. It's awesome, and it feels abnormal. We're streaming to YouTube now, and I know YouTube had founders and then got purchased by Google, but we don't really hear about that too much. We talked about streaming to Twitter or X before, LinkedIn, that kind of thing. These are
Mhm.
different types of platforms that feel like,
Mhm.
again, I'm trying not to be mean today, but it feels like they take more than they give a lot of the
Yeah.
time. And then when you leave the platform, the question of what you own and what you don't own, or like that revenue stream and how that works is different. Where it feels like Patreon, you kind of own your success. Maybe that's a bit rich actually, but it feels like you're more involved in that content, and it's not like somebody that has your content. It's not like it's
Yeah.
stuck on Patreon kind of thing, and you can't take it elsewhere. I really like that model basically, and I'd love to see
Mhm.
more of this as we're talking about new social networks. Threads is out there. I finally did find that Instagram button, by the way. I wasn't able to get to generate anything, but it
Okay.
does say search with AI after I updated last
Okay.
week. Again, maybe it doesn't generate in Canada. I'm not sure. It will, though, take multiple pictures when I upload and ask me if I want to create a reel,
Okay.
which I think it uses Gen AI to find the music for the reel. So
Right.
again, this might be a little bit different in different markets, but in terms of like how Gen AI proliferates these apps and makes them better, not there yet. I'm still stuck on this topic we
Yeah.
were talking about before. Basically, I don't think we've hit a wall. I think we've hit like the trough of disillusionment, where people are like, this is helpful, but not as helpful as I thought it was going to be, which
Yep.
makes me think that it's going to get better as a result. So that's kind of waiting for, is that
Yeah,
next
I mean,
climb.
some people have commented on some of my videos where I've looked at different front ends for Olama, and it's like, well, can't there be just like one really good one? It's like, well, it's still kind of early. It's still like everything's exciting still, and
Yes.
there hasn't been enough time for a company to get behind building a product that is polished and supported, that has all the features that everybody wants now. It just doesn't. There are lots of projects that are getting close, and some of those projects are becoming companies or getting funding, and so that's great. But they're still all pretty rough. I mean, Datadog as a solution, I mean, it's really a lot of pieces in there, but it was a long time before it was more than just collecting metrics. More than the original vision for Datadog being Facebook for metrics.
Right.
It was like that for the first 2 years I was there, and Datadog had existed for 2 or 3 years before I started.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a long time for all those features to get added to make a nice cohesive product.
Yeah, in fact, honestly, like I work for a company, but also as a user of the software, as
Yeah.
used it for years. I feel like there are promises that Datadog has not made, but are trying to get to, in terms of like a platform that you can build apps on, that kind of thing. So there's been a few times where we've released SDKs and products and stuff like that, and the traction just isn't there. Maybe it's just like a bad fit or whatever. And there have been a couple times where we've re-released like an app builder kind of platform. I think we're kind of in that space now, but it's interesting to see, how do I say this? Like, what your clients say they want and what they really want might be different as well, which is difficult. So sometimes you have to be opinionated, which is, I think, the early days of the company. Whereas now it's a little bit different in that you're trying to satisfy a lot of people too. I don't know. I don't have a lot of big opinions here, but
there's that classic. I don't know if it's a real quote, but the quote we always hear from Ford, from Henry Ford. If he listened to his customers, we'd have a faster horse-drawn buggy.
Right. Right. What's my favorite? Like you can buy a car in any color as long as it's black kind of thing is the other one.
Right.
Which is I think an example of opinionated kind of steering a company, basically, not to put too much of a pun on it. Yeah. So listen, this week I decided to wear a different shirt. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I figured I would point it out. So I'm wearing a Mets shirt, which is a Canadian band, which I also wanted to point out. But I finally used Merch Bar. Have you ever used this? You know when you go into Spotify and they say, "Hey, there's merch available for your band, Matt." And I look at it and I'm like, "Oh, you suckers, you got me. I do like this T-shirt, but as much as I love Spotify, I don't want to buy a shirt through their ads to stuff it. And maybe I just should, but maybe like I listen to Apple Music, I listen to Spotify, I listen to music that I've legitimately purchased as well. But I really like music. I followed a few of the links. They landed on Merch Bar, so I figured I might as well just go straight to the stores instead of through Spotify. Chances are there's a cookie and they'll get some sort of kickback anyway. But I went. So again, there's a conference coming up. I've lost a little bit of weight. I'm not sure if I mentioned this to the channel, but I've been on an allergy reduction diet for 3 months, which means that I can't eat a lot of stuff, including like wheat and yeast and sugar, which is unfortunate because that's like most of my diet. So in 3 days that will be over. But I'm now a medium, which meant that I had to buy new T-shirts, and I was like, what better time to buy 5 T-shirts for a conference I'm going to than now? So I bought 5 punk band black T-shirts, and it was phenomenal.
Wow.
Got here in about 10 days, which is pretty good for Canada. The cost per shirt was about $20, which is pretty good for Canada. And the whole experience was actually not bad. Like, I can't say I'm the biggest fan of Merch Bar in terms of the way the site works. I don't know if you've ever used it, but it's difficult to find like black T-shirts for a genre of music, which took me a bit to get there. But I was able to navigate around and get to it.
Can you stand up so I can see the full picture? Ah, okay. So all I could see was like the top of his forehead. And so I was thinking that this was Jaws coming up out of the sea.
Oh,
because that's all I could see.
yeah.
I couldn't see anything more. Yeah, sea eating. I couldn't even see that it was a human head.
I actually don't even know what the photo is about. I think it's a messed up Polaroid that's been digitally altered to include flames inside of it. Is what they're trying to say. Who knows? The album's really good. If you like hard, like driving rock, you may like it. I also bought 2 pins and a CD from Mets at the same time. Again, maybe it's because they're Canadian. I figured I'd throw those trash, but I put the actual physical CD in my car in the actual physical CD player, and that felt good. I'm not gonna lie. To like,
I do not have one.
To take a disc out and put it in. There's no disc player in your car.
No.
Yeah, that feels weird to me, but again, maybe I'm just older. But like the physicality of opening a CD sleeve, seeing the picture in the insert and then popping it in,
Pulling it out of your 10 CD sleeve on your visor. Yeah.
Classic. I used to drive around with one of those 200 CD holders and make my partner go through them and pop them in and stuff like that.
Right.
Or in the iPod era to rate the songs that we liked as we went through. But yeah, we're back to CDs now.
I mean, I at home I had, it was pretty fancy to have one of the CD players that could take 5 CDs on a big tray.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you could play like all of the Pink Floyd albums that you like.
Yes. Maybe a little Journey in there as well, and they're all the top hits of the time.
I love it. Yeah, I never did get the multi-disc changer, and I really do.
How much have you lost? What, you went to can you say the?
Yeah, I think I haven't measured the weight, but I'm down 3 pant sizes, maybe 4 pant sizes. Yeah.
Wow.
So I went from like a 38 to a 32.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like pretty market difference. And the question I had is like, how big was my butt before? Because the gut's kind of the same, but like, I mean, in terms of pants and the way they fit, like, I'm pretty sure there's only one other factor here that I don't necessarily.
Is this maintainable, or are you coming back to that larger size?
I generally
in 4 days.
I generally just sort of remain the same way for a while, and gradually increasing or decreasing. Yeah. It's more about being active. I think now that it's
Yeah.
sunnier out, I say this kind
Mhm.
of like it's getting sunny today. I hope the Pacific Northwest gets some. But yeah, it's sustainable. The main thing is it looks like I had an allergic reaction to some yeast that built up in my stomach and made me allergic to
Mm.
like every food, which was not good. So word of warning, I think it's called Candida infection in the gut. Many people have it. Sometimes they
Mm.
just go out of control, and that seems to be what
Mm.
happened. Yeah, and it's
Wow.
very, very odd. I had to get blood
Wow.
tests and stuff like this. It was
Do
quite scary.
you have you noticed that it's colder? Do you
The,
feel colder
yeah, all the time. Yeah, you talking
all
about
the
like
time? Yeah.
caloric intake and stuff? Yes, all the
No,
time.
well, I'm talking about just losing some fat. One thing that my experience
Oh, good point. Yeah, that
was
could be it too.
was that
Yeah, the inflammation
I
is
went
gone.
from yeah, exactly. When I was at Microsoft, I did a program called 2020,
Right.
and they pair you up with a dietitian and personal trainer and all these other things. And Microsoft totally covers it if you're an employee and you stay in the program. And I went from about 290 pounds down to about 220 pounds
Wow.
in about 3 or 4 months,
Wow.
and I kept most of that off up until it took it like 15, 20 years to get back
Right.
to.
It's like most of
Yeah,
us, honestly, we're pretty. We tend to sit in a chair and
yeah,
work kind of thing. And I don't eat a
yeah,
lot. I've been around you. You don't eat massive meals. I mean, for your size, you don't need like massive
yeah,
meals. It's kind of normal. So I think it
yeah,
feels like most of the people in the industry are like that. If we're gaining weight, it's
yeah.
like slowly over time kind of stuff.
Slow. Yeah,
It builds up. Yeah. It's
yeah.
and this is not to say anyone in the chat
Or,
that
as I like to
need to.
say,
Yeah.
stored knowledge. It's
Yes.
stored knowledge. I'm
Exactly.
smarter.
Exactly. And yeah, I think a lot about the ship of Theseus. Have I ever brought this up on this podcast?
Oh,
Okay. So ship of Theseus is the question if you make a boat that's made out of wood and you put it out to sea, many of those boards will go rotten over time and you'll have to keep swapping them out. And that at some point in time you will replace the last board. So the mast or something might break and you replace it. And then the question is that the same boat as the one that you put out to sea in the beginning? And I think it's around 40, maybe 45, where like all the cells that you had when you started off as a human have changed. And you're laughing about the stored knowledge, but like it could be that like different cells have migrated around your body.
mhm,
They generally will
uh-huh.
have the same role, but yeah, it's maybe you're digesting the brain cells and they land in the belly
Right.
or something like that. But I do like, yeah. So are you a different person? Are you continuously evolving? It's very interesting to me. No, again, no
Well,
answers here, just food for thought.
yeah. But after all that weight loss, I felt colder. I had to wear jackets more often.
Right. Like right now I'm cold and I feel like I could have
Yeah.
draft. Yeah. Prepping for hibernation is a pretty good one. I like that. Yeah. So yeah,
Hmm.
so my checkout for the week is merch bar. If you've got bands that need
Okay.
love, they will get some proceeds of the t-shirt purchase or what have you. The other one is Bandcamp when we're talking about like things to buy. That's
Okay.
where I get most of my music is Bandcamp. So it feels like now that we're kind of out of the COVID lull in terms of performances, even though listen, COVID's still out there, having just gotten it recently, um, it is a nice way to give back to those artists that may have
Hmm.
been suffering for the past 2 or 3 years.
Hmm. I'm looking around.
Uh-oh.
See if I.
You definitely prepped.
I mean,
yourself for that, can
I'm
tell.
very excited. I'm very excited because my iPad if I look at Apple Store
It's still not
now,
here. I had assumed it was here. Sorry, I don't mean to yell into the mic, but
your order is being prepared for shipment.
all right.
It's been there for 2 days. It's been
Wow.
at that status.
I wonder if you're one
Preparing
of
to
those
ship.
like custom pre-built kind of things where they've like legitimately only made a few of these.
So
and sent them to you.
Well, on the initial day, I was trying to figure out how can I delay this iPad from showing up, because if it showed up, it was when I first started to place the order,
Right.
it was gonna show up on Wednesday or whatever.
Right.
But I was in Sitka or Ketchikan or somewhere,
Right.
far, far away, and in fact, the closest Apple store to where I was in Alaska was down here in Bellevue. So there was no.
Another boat
I
ride
guess
back.
there was a Vancouver one, but I wasn't going there, or Victoria.
Or Juneau?
Huh?
Juneau? No.
Yeah. So no, there's not one
Nothing
there.
in the
So
Northwest Territories. Okay.
no, way north. No.
Wow.
There might be one in Anchorage, or somewhere like that. But so I needed to.
There goes
Yay!
your video frame rate. It dropped to like 2 frames a second. That was awesome.
So I had to get it delayed by a little bit, and so I thought, well, let me add an engraving because that's got to be
Yes, it
delay
like by
things.
a week. Yeah.
Didn't change. It was still going to be delivered that same day. It's like but I I think I kept that in the order and eventually kept like retrying, refreshing, and eventually it moved back to 2 weeks later, and so that's where I am. But I maybe should have removed the engraving, and it might have been here a little earlier. I don't know,
It's tough
or not.
I like the engraving because then I know,
Yeah.
especially for the AirPods.
Because I'm
like,
sure
you know which one
there's
is
a
which.
human being with a little
Yeah, like the stone tablet and the.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is totally my internet. My internet sucks.
Yeah, it's. I think someone said dodgy internet. It does look
Yeah.
like dodgy internet to me, especially because
Yeah.
it's audio and video and the way that it's fluctuating.
Yeah.
It happens. Happens to us all.
Yeah.
Someone went from 120 to 66 kg, and that's a lot. And I meant to say a disclaimer, like, listen, this doesn't mean that you need to go ahead and lose weight to feel better. This is just something as a result of my allergy thing.
Yeah.
But yes, that is a massive change for sure. Luckily, I kept some of the old jeans around just in case. When I first joined Datadog, I was like, I'll come back to this weight.
Whoa, that is huge.
What's that?
66 or from 120.
Yes.
I have to do the math.
That's a whole person.
120. That is a whole person.
Yes.
264 to wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so Sam, you're right. So the main thing I was avoiding was throwing up every day, and that has stopped, which is fantastic. Concurrent features. Oh, we've got one. Oh, do you have time for a tech question?
Oh my God, as a relevant question.
Oof.
Where'd that person come from?
NVIDIA L4s. We gotta look this up. What's an NVIDIA L4?
Oh yeah.
Tensor. Oh, interesting. Oh, it's a DC tensor core. Oh, we're learning. Very interesting. All right. So I think, so it's Google Cloud, right? So they may have early access on Google Cloud based on what I just read. Trying to run on NVIDIA 4. Oh, okay. So the question is like basically multiplexing. So if they want to use 4 GPUs at the same time with Ollama, is there a way to get around it? Concurrent features. And I think this has come up a few times.
They want to use multiple Llama. No.
Yeah.
No.
And I think what we came down
so there
to
is a
Docker was kind of the easiest way.
Docker is potentially, if you can, as a big if. There's also some NVIDIA command that says, use this one GPU for the next command. I think it is. But I've seen people try, because it's mentioned in some pretty esoteric NVIDIA support article ages ago, and I don't know if it really works and I don't have an NVIDIA card, so I can't really try it myself. I mean, it will. I don't know of a way to say for this Ollama serve instance only use this GPU. It's going to use all of the GPUs.
Right.
And which is going to be slower than using one GPU.
Yeah, I mean, the traditional answer is you could isolate them in VMs, but if you're on the cloud, based on the article that I just read, that's going to be a little bit more difficult to do.
Yeah.
And blacklisting with Docker can help, but yeah, it can be difficult if the OS already has the GPU crab, but you can kind of do that way with PCIe.
I mean, if you're going to be in the cloud, is that where are we assuming that?
I'm assuming just based on the L4 article that I
L4. I mean, if there's a cloud instance,
Cloud.
Oh, cloud. I mean, I've seen the L4s also on Brev, but Brev is just reselling Google Cloud. I mean, it is Google Cloud.
And then there's like
but with
or something as well. Anyway, sorry.
Paperspace.
Thank you.
Paperless is the paper cover on your iPad.
We've saturated all the words.
But Paperspace, does that. So I mean, if it is a cloud provider, then we'll just get an instance with one of those L4s, and then another one with an L4, and then another one. I mean,
And Sam's basically saying what I was thinking is that
Yeah.
setting the CUDA devices.
CUDA
CUDA
device,
limiting.
yeah.
I didn't know about Llama CPP having a distributed backend, which sounds pretty handy actually.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, tough
I
call.
think, I mean, the Olama team is very careful about not just rolling out all the changes that
Right.
Llama CPP has. Uh, because there's maybe other engines coming to it and don't want to be like just lockstep into. But that
Right.
was what I thought like 6 months ago. Maybe that's not gonna. I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Tough call.
No. Wow, all these Olama questions last
Wow.
minute.
RPC backend. Wow. Blast from the past. That's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Between macOS, Linux, NVIDIA, AMD. Very, very interesting. Yeah, the plot thickens.
See back.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool, actually.
Okay. I know the Intel Arc support apparently is some basic support for Intel Arc is built into Olama today, and they're testing it out.
I saw you list that on
And
the GitHub stuff. Awesome.
yeah, I don't think it's mentioned anywhere.
Ah, gotcha. That's really cool because Battle Mage, well, they've been saying it's about to be released for a while, but the 700 series, so the top of the line kind of Intel card seems to be.
I think it's only been tested on like the smallest of the Intel Arc cards.
Honestly,
But
that's maybe even better because it's hard to get those tiny video cards. It's hard to get a small video card, and I think Intel's kind of the only vendor that can give you one that's tiny. Interesting.
yeah.
I like that a lot, actually.
So I don't know if that's going to support like the integrated GPUs.
Right.
Yeah, all I know, I don't even know what Arc really is. I just heard that term, Intel Arc.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head there when you were talking about the integrated CPU stuff, because my understanding is that they're different cores that are it's sort of like ASIC made for graphics stuff, but the difference between the on die and the discrete is that there's more of the cores. Is my understanding is that's the architecture. So it went from their old integrated graphics into this, which is it's surprisingly performant actually. Just because I guess if you're coming from if you assume that this is a brand new thing, you'd think it would take them years to get to this
Right.
performance level. But surprisingly, it seems to be priced okay. Yeah, it actually looks okay. Oh no,
This
we've
NP
opened up. We've opened up
the
floodgates here.
NPU question. Has something changed regarding?
brand new,
Is there
yeah.
like news of NPU? Is that just
Yeah.
like in the last few days?
In the last 3 weeks, I'd say 3-4 weeks, and it's Nvidia specifically renaming a bunch of their mobile processors and releasing the 7000 series, and yeah, the they call it the third generation NPUs, but it's basically it's onboard graphics plus plus because again they're adding extensions to it to make things a little bit easier. But that is my understanding is that the NPUs
So
are just a different term.
I'd never heard that term up until like 2 days ago, and I've seen like 6 questions about that,
We talked about this,
and I have no answers.
the Coral,
Oh, is that the
yeah, so
Carl? Okay.
You could call that an NPU or a DPU,
Okay.
depending on who you are. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's my understanding is that all of these are NPUs now. Similar to like, are we in the era of math coprocessors? Like that's what it feels like to me, right? Again, I'm pretty old, but I've seen like so GPU was a coprocessor,
Right.
and now we're into the NPU coprocessor. So that's kind of where we're spitting out.
I remember buying the math coprocessor. I don't know why. I mean, I bought one when they were a thing. Yeah.
You must have been doing a lot of math.
Not intentionally.
Not
I must have been like, I think at the time I was really into POV Ray, early ray tracer.
Yeah.
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 And that might have benefited.
I remember was the first project. I don't think I got it further than the tea kettle. It took so long to render that freaking thing.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've covered most of the chat. I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Perfect.
So any other thing that I've recommendations? I feel like there been any TV? I don't think there has been. I just saw. For some reason, I was sitting down. I just feel like vegging out for a little bit,
Yep.
maybe an hour, half hour, no more, and I ended up sitting through the movie, the whole movie, which I hadn't seen in a long time. Although I used a clip of it in one of my videos pretty recently.
Ooh,
Enemy of the State. Do you remember that?
I do. Is it Denzel Washington? Is that right?
No, it's Will Smith.
Oh my god, I'm so terrible. I'm so sorry.
And
I do remember this movie. Yes.
where he's a lawyer, but his like a former friend, college friend, drops some sort of game gear or something into his bag with a PCMCI card that has the secret information, that has a recording of some senator being offed by the FBI or by NSA, and everybody's out to get him.
I feel like I've
destroy his
never
life.
watched this movie. Honestly, I thought I had. Now that I'm looking at the cover, yes,
It's not bad.
it's got Gene
I
Hackman
mean-
and John Voight. I mean,
Yes.
Will
Yeah,
Smith's
it-
all right.
it's-
Like honestly, he's all right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
In fact,
it's
thinking
Jerry
of like,
Bruckheimer. Yeah, how are the actions?
oh yeah,
scenes?
oh, it's like totally over the top. It's pretty fun, and of course that reminded me of other movies that involve technology that were actually pretty good from way back.
Swordfish
like-
as like the cringiest.
I don't know if Swordfish counts as
It's
one.
the opposite, I think.
I mean, like there was also, what was it, The Net with Sandra Bullock? It was terrible.
Yeah, no, the computer scenes are probably okay though. Yeah.
Mozart's Ghost or whatever was the
Yeah.
game. Oh,
Yeah.
that was. I mean, that was. I remember.
Oh, I think we actually lost him. So this is where we go into the monologue and we see if we can cut this after.
What just
There-
happened?
There he is. He's back. I think you lost.
I
him.
think
This is where we can test the AI to see, figure out if we
That's
can
right.
drop the scene.
that's weird. Everything went dark.
Oh, like all the lights turned off?
Yeah,
Oh.
and then it came back.
all
My
right.
UPS started.
Oh, maybe you lost power.
Yeah, although a lot of this should stay out. It must have been just like I mean, the whole island lost power yesterday.
Ah, okay. So maybe they're resuming or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
All right. Oh, well, listen, we can call it here. We'll figure out what this conclusion looks
Yeah.
like. But so everybody go watch Enemy of the State and recommend any movies that have somewhat accurate hacker
Yeah.
scenes or technology scenes in
Sneakers.
them.
Sneakers was great,
Sneakers was amazing. Yeah. That's
and Hackers actually with
also good.
Angelina Jolie and a very young Angelina Jolie and some other folks.
Recently watched that for the first time. I
Yeah.
hacked the planet. I loved it. All right, folks. We'll see you
Okay.
later. This was awesome.
Yep.
We'll see if we can find the end stream button here.
Yeah, it's a new place.
It's a new interview.